Bring the ship back up to Combat Alert Alpha. I want everyone at their stations.
Everyone, sir?
Everyone. And Cortana. Let's give our old friends a warm welcome.
All you green homers who wanted to see Covenant up close, this is gonna be your lucky day.
Coming here was reckless. You two know better than this. Thanks.
Hang on.
Nice one, sir. Time for a little.
Halo, one of the most influential franchises in gaming. A franchise that spawned books, movies, and a TV show. The series clearly has a universe that fans are invested in, a world they want to experience past merely the games. Building as dedicated a fanbase, and having such an influence on the FPS genre, isn't something that most games can claim. And it all started with Halo Combat Evolved, released back in 2001. It's the game that laid the foundation for the rest of the franchise. The first games in series always interest me, because there's an increased pressure on them. If the first game doesn't inspire players, then they aren't going to show up for the sequel. Today, we'll be looking at Halo Combat Evolved, and how it pulls the player into its world through a mix of direct narrative and dynamic narrative created by gameplay. We'll see how Halo Combat Evolved serves as a perfect introduction to a franchise by making the player care about its world. This video will have spoilers, so consider this your warning. Halo Combat Evolved begins with a view of the Halo ring. The Pillar of Autumn approaches, surrounded by a sea of stars. Although the scene is picturesque, the situation is anything but peaceful.
Cortana, all I need to know is, did we lose them?
I think we both know the answer to that.
We made a blind jump. How did they...
Get here first? The Covenant ships have always been faster. As for tracking us all the way from Reach, at light speed my maneuvering options were limited.
We were running dark, yes?
Until we decelerated, no one could have missed the hole we tore in subspace. They were waiting for us on the far side of the planet.
So, where do we stand?
Our fighters are mopping up the last of their recon picket now, nothing serious. But I've isolated approach signatures for multiple CCS-class battle groups, making 3 capital ships per group. And in about 90 seconds, they'll be all over us.
This scene is great at communicating a lot to the player in a short amount of time. A large part of that is Key's tone. He sounds exhausted and weathered, especially when talking about the Covenant. From this alone, you can suspect that this war with the Covenant has not been easy. In addition, he's befuddled by the Covenant's ability to track them. The Covenant's technological superiority is established. And lastly, their cruiser, the Pillar of Autumn, is being chased by the Covenant. The Pillar of Autumn appears to be alone without any reinforcements. This scene of a lone cruiser being hounded by the Covenant doesn't bode well for how the war is going. It's clear that humanity is on the back foot. A lot of information is delivered, but dialogue comes across as natural. It doesn't feel like Keyes is giving exposition to the player. As a result, the player is more immersed. The humans know that an attack on the Pillar of Autumn is imminent, so Keyes readies the ship for battle.
Once again, it is our job to finish what the flyboys started. We are leaving this ship platoon and engaging the Covenant on solid ground. When we meet the enemy, we will rip their skulls from their spines and toss them away laughing. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am. Now move it out! Double time!
What I love about Johnson's speech is that, when juxtaposed with Keyes' prior scene, it encapsulates the mood of the entire series. Keyes' scene establishes this somber tone, with humanity scraping for survival against a superior enemy. Johnson's speech showcases the stubbornness and grit of humanity, which is displayed throughout the series. The Covenant may wipe out humanity to the last man, But that last man's going to be shooting away with his rifle, not giving his enemy an inch of ground if he can help it. This scene pumps the player up, in perfect time for them to take the shoes of Master Chief. When Chief awakes from his cryo chamber, a few techs walk him through the basic movement controls. I love when tutorials are built into the game world like this. As soon as Chief gets his bearings, the Covenant attack.
Intruders in Dial 2! Please, Johnny!
Sam! Sam! Come on, we've got to get the hell out of here!
Even though I just met these techs, I really did feel bad for them when they died. The reason, I think, is because this scene contrasts greatly with Johnson's speech. After his speech, you feel pumped up and ready to take on the Covenant. This scene brings back the harsh reality of the war. The techs didn't stand a chance. The first begs for mercy before being cut down ruthlessly. The second dies abruptly from an explosion, not even knowing what hit him. The Chief needs to meet Captain Keyes ASAP. Without weapons, though, he is entirely defenseless against the Covenant. As the player, you have to weave through the corridors of the ship, fleeing from the invading Covenant. This section is great at using gameplay to communicate the same message as before. As Chief, you're embodying a role similar to humanity as a whole. You're on the back foot, fleeing against an enemy with superior power. You get to experience the fear of the Covenant firsthand. Chief reaches Captain Keyes, who underlines the situation again. Protocol is clear. Cortana the AI cannot be captured by the enemy. Captain Keyes gives Chief Cortana for safekeeping. His primary objective is to get her off the ship and keep her safe from the enemy. And with that, Chief is finally armed. Now he has the power to take on the Covenant. As a player now, you feel confident in your objective and your ability to fight this threat. So again, this is an oscillation towards Johnson's triumphalism and can-do attitude. The oscillation between the despair and triumph is really what makes the Pillar of Autumn such a great introduction mission. The low points of despair are contrasted by the high points of confidence and vice versa. It gives the player a potent mix of these emotions as they step off the ship and into the escape pod. The mission ends on a high note then, with another triumph. We have escaped. The game's second mission, Halo, begins on another low point, undercutting the joy from the escape. The ship crash lands on the ring, killing all of the Marines. The only survivor is Master Chief. Your immediate surroundings are the dark, claustrophobic walls of the escape pod. When Chief exits the pod, the player is greeted by the astonishing vista of Halo, which, even to this day, is something I could stare at all day. The reason comes down to the art design. The Earth-like pine trees, combined with the cool night sky and looming mountains, are contrasted with the unearthly halo ring looping into the sky. The timberland nature instills a sense of wanderlust, and you want to set out and explore this strange land. Contrast once again works to Halo's benefit. The first mission took place in a claustrophobic ship, with the player often crawling through vents. So when you're given the wide open Halo ring to explore, the expansiveness is enhanced. This wanderlust is quickly undercut by the appearance of Covenant ships, scouring the ground for survivors. Seeing all those birds in the sky gives you a primal feeling of being hunted and wanting to get away. Chief proceeds, fighting through Covenant troops. When he crests the hill, he finds survivors engaged in a battle with the Covenant. Chief helps clear out the enemies, but reinforcements arrive. Chief and the Marines fight off waves of enemies. One detail I want to point out is that the Covenant arrive onto the battlefield via dropships. Most games, in contrast, just spawn the enemies off-screen and have them enter the battlefield. The Covenant entering the battlefield in such an organic way is a small detail, but I think it greatly increases immersion. It makes the Covenant feel more grounded as an enemy faction and more real. After the Marines are saved, Chief sets about finding the other surviving Marines. There are 3 packs of Marines you have to save before the mission concludes. Chief is free to save the Marines in whichever order he chooses. The Halo ring is this wild open wilderness, and the openness of the mission structure reflects that well. While this mission establishes the setting well, I think this mission's greatest contribution to the story is the dynamic nature of the Marines during gameplay, and how it fosters care in the player. The best way to illustrate this is through a story, which happened during this playthrough. After saving the first batch of Marines, Cortana sends a dropship to pick them up. I expected all of the Marines to board the ship and exfil the area, and a few did. However, a couple stayed behind. They didn't just idly loiter, though. They ran to the Warthog I had parked earlier and boarded up, one manning the turret on the back. Instead of escaping, they decided to help me rescue the other Marines and strike back at the Covenant. This imbued them with a sense of personality. These weren't just any Marines, these were the brave Marines. I took the wheel and I felt an immediate attachment to these guys, as they barked out, "Let's go," and "Keep it up."
Pick them up and lay them down, Marines! Let's go!
These were my ride and die boys. Together we are going to show the Covenant a piece of our minds. We drive out to the second Marine site. Along the way, the Marines are taking out enemies for me. Things are going swimmingly. Then a grunt with a plasma grenade ruins it all.
More of them! Let's do it! Got him!
My Marines, my comrades, dead. One instantly from the grenade blast, the other from plunging down the cliff, screaming pitifully all the way down. My Marines were killed by the Covenant. I felt an immediate ire for the enemy. I wanted to take them all down for what they did to my Marine buddies. This whole little story took place in about 2 minutes. It fostered in me a care for the UNSC and an antipathy for the Covenant. It made me care about the overall conflict by making me care about the individual soldiers in the engagement. And this first-hand experience worked far better than any cutscene or exposition could have. The true beauty of this encounter is that it was organic. This wasn't a fully scripted event. That Covenant grunt didn't have to throw the grenade. If I hadn't parked the Warthog near the first site, then the Marines likely wouldn't have boarded. The organicness of this experience is a special touch. The dynamism of the gameplay, I think, is where the true magic of Combat Evolved's story lies. There's the direct narrative, but I think all these micro stories you form along the way and the endearment you build with the Marines provide a lot of the caring in the story. Once the Marines are saved, Chief exfils. The Covenant have captured the surviving command crew. It's time to save Captain Keyes. Master Chief and the Marines begin their mission to rescue the captain. At last, the humans aren't on the back foot reacting to the Covenant. This time we're on the offensive. Nonetheless, there's a foreboding atmosphere to the first part of this level. The nighttime lighting and music are instrumental in giving off this sense of mystery.
Forces detected up ahead. The path up on the left should let us sneak up around.
It's a reminder that, even though the humans are on the offensive, this story is anything but over. Chief and the other humans take out Covenant on their way to the cruiser. The dynamic nature of the AI doesn't just apply to your allies. The sandbox of the game can result in enemies having unexpected and hilarious moments. On one hand, moments like this can somewhat diffuse the tension and threat of the Covenant. On the other hand, I think these moments humanize the Covenant troops and give them a sense of personality. These aren't just bots you're fighting, they are an opposing faction, composed of beings with their own sentience. The personality it gives the Covenant then also grounds them. Speaking to the enemy AI, there's a lot to be said about the Covenant's design and combat. The Covenant are very reactive to the player's actions, and there is a clear hierarchy in their ranks. The elites lead the combat units. If you take them down, the grunts often lose their courage and flee from the chief. The elites and grunts both have a survival instinct. If you throw a grenade their way, they'll try to dive out of the way. The same goes for if you try to run them over with a Warthog. There are a lot more examples I could use, but I think I made my point. The Covenant are a very dynamic enemy to fight, and they really feel like they're strategizing when you fight them. This immerses the player too. If the enemy you're fighting feels realistic in combat, it helps you buy into their threat when it comes to this story. When Chief and the Marines reach the grav lift, they have to fight off waves and waves of enemies before they can board. Aside from being a combat challenge, I think this also illustrates the sheer manpower that the Covenant have at their disposal. When you contrast their forces against your ragtag group of Marines, it reinforces the narrative of humans being the underdogs in the overall fight. Chief and the Marines battle through the Covenant cruiser. As we travel through the ship, we get a good look at the Covenant's architecture and design. This further characterizes them. The architecture is very advanced, yet very alien. The roundness of the hallways sticks out in particular. This isn't the type of structure that humans would ever design for a ship. That also goes for the various carvings and inscriptions on the walls. Halo, Combat Evolved, uses architecture as environmental storytelling to great effect, which we'll see later. The Chief manages to reach Captain Keyes.
Coming here was reckless. You two know better than this. Thanks. Marines, lock and load your weapons. Let's be ready to move.
Yes, sir.
I think Captain Key's reaction to the rescue is endearing, and it tells us more about his character. He's a guy that puts the mission above everything, including his own life. Yet he's still human after all, and appreciates his life being saved. With the control room as their next objective, Chief escorts Keyes up the ship. He can die during the segment, which can be very annoying, but it also casts Chief in the protector role through gameplay. They reach the ship and make their escape. This cutscene showcases the UNSC's can-do, never-say-die attitude. It pumps up the player, and gives you the impression that, no matter what the Covenant throw at us, we can succeed with enough grit.
Give me a minute to interface with the ship's controls.
No need. I'll take this bird out myself.
Captain! Hunter!
Hang on.
Nice one, sir.
Time for a little payback.
With that, the race to the control room begins. The silent cartographer starts with Master Chief and some Marines dropping onto an island. Somewhere under the island, the Covenant believe there is a silent cartographer that will lead to Halo's control center. The mission: get to the cartographer first. You and the Marines storm the beach, fighting a horde of Covenant as you advance onto the island. This is one of the most iconic moments of the game, and it's easy to see why. With the music swelling, and the Marines at your side, it's easy to get swept up in the momentum and grandioseness of the moment. This part reinforces your camaraderie with the Marines, and humanity in general. Once the beach is taken, a Warthog is dropped off for Chief to use. I want to highlight the level presentation here. It would have been easy to just spawn a Warthog, or have it waiting when Chief got to the top. However, the developers put in the extra work to have a ship fly in and airdrop the Warthog in a natural, true-to-world way. These extra details add to the immersion and feeling of authenticity. Chief and the Marines fight into the Forerunner facility, but the Covenant lock the doors behind them. Chief needs to find another way in or unlock the door. They communicate this to Keyes, who is on a mission to secure a weapons cache. This is set up for later. The level opens up as Chief is left to figure out how to reach the silent cartographer. Generally, it seems the levels where the Halo ring is the focus. Like this in the second level, the level design is more open. I think the open-ended level design helps sell the Halo ring as a frontier better than constricted level design would. Chief manages to get the door open, so he returns and enters the Forerunner facility. Architecture as a means of environmental storytelling is once again used to great effect with the Forerunners. This place is vast, as Chief establishes when he kicks a rock off into the abyss. It's far grander in size than anything we've seen built by humans or the Covenant. Even the Covenant ship, which felt pretty big, feels dwarfed by this Forerunner installation. Another thing to note is the design of the corridors and rooms Chief travels down. The inscriptions on the walls and the blinking blue lights and machinery look too advanced for humanity. Yet the architecture, with its flat, gray walls and boxy design, looks very different from the Covenant's architecture, which uses a lot of curves. So the Forerunner architecture looks more advanced, yet more familiar. Chief and Cortana find the map, and they uncover the control room's location. Yet they can't get in contact with Captain Keyes to relay the information. This is more build-up for later. Still, they can't afford to delay. Chief and Cortana head out of the facility, fighting Covenant on the way. Cortana has a clever solution to reach the control room. Halo has deep tunnels, so they can travel through them and hit the Covenant from below. Chief gets off the ship and battles through Covenant troops to reach the control room. There's an abrupt change in climate. While we've been accustomed to summertime weather, this region of the ring is wintry. Cortana comments on the weather.
Interesting. The weather patterns here seem weird, but not artificial. I wonder if the ring's environment systems are malfunctioning, or if the designers wanted the installation to have inclement weather.
This is an interesting observation. Why would somebody want the ring to have inclement weather? It builds even more intrigue about this mysterious ring planet. The level opens up much like the last. Besides selling Halo Ring as a frontier, this also widens the player's tactical options, which, in turn, also builds the story. Let me explain what I mean by another example. When I came out into this open field, I noticed a group of Marines shooting at the Covenant next to a Warthog, so I headed over to them. There were a lot of vehicles in this area, including a Covenant Wraith, which is essentially the Covenant's version of a tank. I figured the best strategy would be to get into the Warthog. the Marines would get into the vehicle with one manning the back turret. Then I could drive while the Marines shot at the enemy. However, before I could get into the Warthog, the Marines died. Without them, I would have no means of offense in the Warthog. I would be an easy target for the Covenant. So I changed my tactics, opting instead to hijack a Ghost, which has better mobility for a single rider and the ability to shoot. What's really cool about this is that I organically incorporated the Marines into my gameplay tactics. Gameplay pushed me into the headspace of Master Chief. I was actively thinking about my allies and having to change my tactics based on their own actions. Again, this dynamic gameplay builds an organic connection between the player, the character you're inhabiting, and his allies. It's really effective. As Chief fights towards the control room, he goes through more Forerunner architecture. Another detail I want to point out is the massive elevators. When you ride up them, you really get a feel for the sheer scale of the Forerunner architecture. Along the way, Chief fights a lot of Covenant. Another cool detail about the Covenant is their use of color to signify rank. The Elite's rank can be determined by their color, with blue being the lowest rank and gold being the general's. What's cool is that this is expressed through gameplay by the Elite's behavior. The player can intuit their rank without having to look this up on a lore wiki. It adds to the immersion that the Covenant are a real army with a dedicated hierarchy. Chief reaches the control center, and the place is vast. Scale is again used to great effect. Cortana plugs into the system, but she finds disturbing information.
You can't imagine the wealth of information. The knowledge, so much, so fast. It's glorious.
So, what sort of weapon is it?
What are you talking about?
Let's stay focused. Halo, how do we use it against the Covenant?
This ring isn't a cudgel, you barbarian. It's something else. Something much more important. The Covenant were right. This ring, it's Forerunner. Give me a second to access. Yes, the Forerunner built this place, what they called a fortress world, in order to... Wait. No, that can't be. Oh, those Covenant fools. They must have known. There must have been signs.
Slow down. You're losing me.
The Covenant found something. Buried in this ring. Something horrible. And now, they're afraid.
Something buried? Where?
The captain. We've got to stop the captain.
Chief has to reach keys before it's too late. 343 Guilty Spark is, in a lot of ways, the peak of Halo Combat Evolved storytelling. It delivers the biggest twist in the game, and it does so masterfully through the use of level design, enemy AI, and traditional storytelling techniques. The mission starts with the Covenant running away from something. Up until now, the Covenant has been an aggressive enemy, constantly pushing on humanity. Seeing them run away is a disturbing sight. What could make them flee like that? Chief trudges through a dark, misty swamp. Visibility is poor. When he reaches the facility, the Covenant act differently. The Grunts don't care about Master Chief. They ignore him entirely, instead fleeing whatever lay inside. Their fear is expressed even through gameplay. Chief descends into the facility. There's no music. Everything is quiet. It makes the environment feel dead, so much that it even pervades the air. He runs into more Covenant, but they're all clustered in a tight enclosure. It looks like they're hiding. The Covenant don't usually cluster like this. Chief encounters a Marine. The Marine isn't relieved at the Chief's presence. Instead, he's terrified. He shoots at you. He doesn't calm down either. There's no reassuring him.
Don't touch me, you freaks! I won't be like you, I'll die first! Find your own hiding place, the monsters are everywhere! Play dead! That's what I did. Play dead. The live ones. Oh god, I can still hear them. Monsters!
Chief continues on to try to find keys in Johnson. Things are looking worse and worse. He continues, coming across assault rifles on the floor. He enters a walkway, filled with blood. There's a dead Marine. He opens a doorway. A Marine falls into his arms. Chief catches him and holds him protectively as he searches for enemies. Chief doesn't get a whole lot of characterization in this game, but his body language here says everything. He's the protector, the big brother of the Marines. Of humanity, really. His care shines through in moments like these. He finds a helmet with footage. He plays it back and discovers the horrors that transpired.
Look at it! Something scrambled the insides.
What's that? Plasma scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was an accident, you know, friendly fire or something?
What do we have, Sergeant?
Looks like a Covenant patrol. Badass elite units. All KIA.
Real pretty. Friend of yours?
Nah, we just met.
Right, well, let's get this door open.
I'll try, sir. But it looks like these Covenant worked pretty hard to lock it down.
Just do it, son.
Yes, sir. Got a bad feeling about this.
Boy, you always got a bad feeling about something.
Sarge, can you hear me?
What's going on, soldier?
He's got contact, lots of them, but they're not Covenant. They're just tearing through us. What the? Oh, no!
Corporal, do you copy? Over. Mendoza, get your ass back up to second squad's position and find out what the hell is going on.
But
I don't have time for your lip, soldier. I gave you an order.
Sarge! Listen!
What is that? Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it! Sergeant, we're surrounded. God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it, Marine.
Oh, this is local!
Back here, Marine. That's an order.
Jenkins!
As soon as the footage concludes, the Flood bear down on Master Chief. He has to fight against this new enemy. Near the helmet, there are splatters of blood which cover the floor. There are assault rifles and pistols scattered about. It's where Keyes and Johnson encountered the Flood, the remnants of their battle. There aren't any bodies here. The Marines either escaped or were taken. Based on the video, the prospects don't look good. The build-up and reveal of the Flood is just masterful. As I've tried to illustrate, the build-up combines environmental storytelling, sound design, and AI design, steadily increasing the suspension and dread until the fateful helmet cam footage. The helmet cam footage is the perfect reveal for the Flood. The poor quality, plus the Marines' limited perspective, really sells the horror of this new enemy. This build-up has been happening since Keyes first split from Chief to get the supposed weapons cache, and the payoff here is worth it. Chief has to escape from this new enemy. Along the way, there are more disturbing environmental details. The ceiling drips with a nasty-looking slime. Chief runs into more Covenant. These once imposing enemies beg for their lives as the Flood attack.
No! Please, no!
In a lot of ways, this mission is a microcosm of what makes Halo Combat Evolved storytelling so effective, combining dynamic, changing gameplay powered by believable AI, along with stellar environmental design, punctuated by effective cutscenes and scripted events. Chief fights his way out of the facility. On the way, he runs into surviving Marines, and they make their way through the swamp. He encounters 343 Guilty Spark, the monitor of the installation. His primary goal is to stop the Flood, and that's all Chief needs to hear to join him. 343 transports them to the library. So, I think it's about time where I show my book. For any first-time viewers, I'm a sci-fi writer along with doing YouTube. I have a post-apocalyptic series, The Northfield Saga. The first 2 books are out now, and I'm pretty proud of them. They've received some accolades at book contests if you don't want to take my word for it. The series centers on Mark Northfield, a man who struggles with the gray morality that is inevitable in a post-apocalyptic world. He tries to be the best man he can, but the world refuses to let him. His humble life takes on greater significance than he could have ever imagined, as the target he is meant to kill ends up being the one man that can save the world. It's a character-focused story with lots of world-building and fast-moving action. If that sounds interesting to you, please check out the series. It's the best way you can support me here. I hope to have it reach the bestseller list one day. Buying a book helps me past just the purchase. The more people that buy the book on Amazon, the more Amazon recommends the book to other people, which then introduces other people to my story. It can start a chain reaction. There's a link tree in my video description, which has links to the books and my personal website. Thanks for listening. With that, we'll get back to CE. And now onto the library, one of the most infamous levels in Halo. A lot of people think this is the worst level in the entire series, or at least ranks pretty high up there. The reason why is that the library is a monotonous slog through copy-pasted corridors, with the same flood enemies constantly hounding you. It's an excessively long level too, and definitely drags. But this video is focused on CE's storytelling. Although I may not love the library or how it plays, I think some of the elements here work storytelling-wise, even if they may harm the overall game. The repeated corridors and the feeling that the level will never end, when paired with the constant flood attacking you from every direction, really sell the flood as this endless enemy. You feel exhausted and fatigued when fighting them. You don't feel like you're beating the flood. At best, you're fending them off temporarily. While the prior level focused on the horror of the flood, this level showcases their persistent, endless nature. By playing this level, you'll get a natural understanding as the player of how this flood, if unleashed across the galaxy, would quickly consume everything. While fighting through the flood, 343 Guilty Spark provides a lot of interesting information about the flood and the purpose of the installation. His dialogue is essentially just exposition dumps.
You can see how the body's been transformed by the genetic restructuring of the flood infection. The small creatures carry spores that cause a host to It is insidious and elegant. As long as any hosts remain, the flood is virulent.
A lot of time, exposition dumps are a bad thing in fiction because they come across as unnatural. You can feel the writer behind the curtain, spoon-feeding you the information instead of delivering it in a natural way. I do think the exposition dumps work with 343, however, and the reason is because they do feel natural for his character. He's such an oblivious AI, humming along as he flows through the corridors. It feels like, for him, it's the most natural thing in the world to be dishing out information while Chief is in the middle of battling for his life. Chief and 343 finally reach the destination of their hunt, the Index. Before Chief and Guilty Spark can continue, Cortana interrupts and explains that Chief's new friend may not have the best interests at heart.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up in here watching you toady about, helping that thing get set to slit our throats.
Hold on now. He's a friend.
Oh, I didn't realize. He's your pal, is he? Your chum? Do you have any idea what that bastard almost made you do?
Yes. Activate Halo's defenses and destroy the flood, which is why we brought the Index to the control center.
You mean this?
A construct in the core? That is absolutely unacceptable.
Sod off!
What impertinence! I shall purge you at once!
You sure that's a good idea?
How dare you? Oh!
Do what? I have the Index. You can just float and sputter.
Enough! The flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood. It kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life. You don't believe me? Ask him.
Is it true?
More or less. Technically, this installation's pulse has a maximum effective radius of 25,000 light years. But once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be quite devoid of life. Or at least any life with sufficient biomass to sustain the flood. But you already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you?
Left out that little detail, did he?
We have followed outbreak containment procedure to the letter. You were with me each step of the way as we managed this crisis.
Chief, I'm picking up movement.
Why would you hesitate to do what you've already done?
We need to go, right now.
Last time you asked me, if it were my choice, would I do it? Having had considerable time to ponder your query, my answer has not changed. There is no choice. We must activate the ring.
Get us out of here.
If you are unwilling to help, I will simply find another. Still, I must have the Index. Give your construct to me, or I will be forced to take her from you.
That's not going to happen.
So be it. Save his head. Dispose of the rest.
With Guilty Spark turning against Chief, there are now 4 opposing factions on the ring. There are now the humans, the Covenant, the Flood, and now the Monitors. The chaos of these factions clashing is apparent via gameplay as soon as the next level, 2 Betrayals, begins. Chief enters a hallway where he must fight against the Covenant, Flood, and 343 Sentinels, who are now all attacking each other. Chief's ultimate objective is to destroy the ring. No matter the threat that the Flood presents, wiping out humanity is not an acceptable solution. His immediate goal in this mission is to delay 343 and buy time to destroy the ring. He does so by disabling 3 generators. This level is mostly a retread of Attack on the Control Room. Because of that, there isn't a whole lot more to glean story-wise from environmental design. The goal of disabling the generators doesn't provide any new story revelations. However, I do think there are a couple of ways this mission nonetheless build upon the story. First, I do think having the player retread old ground, although a bit stale, does succeed in reinforcing the setting. The player had to travel through this place to reach the control room. Forcing them to travel back does give the impression that it's a physical place. It's sort of like an open world game. You retread similar areas to go from objective to objective, but by seeing the same areas you get a feel for them and form a mental map, and it overall makes everything feel more solid. Second, we traveled through this area pre-flood. Now we see the area post-flood. Our familiarity with this area makes that contrast more apparent, and seeing the Covenant ultimately falling to the Flood, despite fighting as best they can, does succeed in foreshadowing what a larger conflict with the Flood would look like. With all 3 generators disabled, and the monitors sufficiently delayed, Chief and Cortana head to their next objective. They plan on using the Pillar of Autumn, the ship they arrived in, to destroy Halo. They intend to detonate the ship, but they need the authorization and Captain Key's neural implants to do it. Cortana figures out how to use the teleportation grid that the monitors use. She jumps Chief to Captain Key's location. The move is pretty risky, so they only do this teleportation thing once. Cortana gets a bead on Captain Key's vitals. It turns out the captain is still alive. He's on a Covenant cruiser which has been overtaken by the Flood. The Covenant tried to escape, but they didn't make it in time. Chief's mission is simple: get to the captain, save him if you can, but above all else, retrieve the implant. This mission is very similar to 2 Betrayals, in that it is a retread of old ground, except this time it is the Truth and Reconciliation ship instead of the Halo ring. So the same criticisms as well as the same story observations apply here, copy and pasted much like this mission. Again, this mission contrasts the world pre-flood versus post-flood. There are some cool environmental changes. The ship is in ruins, and this contrast sticks out because of how pristine the ship looked earlier. Chief even has to drop down into a cavern, navigating pools of leaking coolant in order to find another way into the ship. In these caverns, chaos reigns. The close quarters combat and the dynamic nature of the Flood and Covenant AI make these some of the most unpredictable engagements in the game. The player is often better off sneaking by his enemies and letting them fight it out. In this way, the gameplay strategy aligns well with Chief's strategy in the story. In this context, it makes the most sense for him to move as quickly as possible, opting for speed instead of engaging enemy troops. Along the way, Keyes tells Chief to leave him and escape.
I gave you an order, soldier. Now pull out!
He's delirious. In pain. We have to find him.
Without knowledge of Chief's plan, his intentions are noble, willing to sacrifice his own life so his soldier lives. When Chief reaches the captain, it's too late. He has been entirely subsumed by the Flood infection. Knowing what the captain would want, Chief retrieves the implant and escapes the ship. Chief returns to where this story started, the Pillar of Autumn. Although we've been retreading old ground over the past few levels, and this is another case of that, it does tie a nice narrative bow in the game. We started in the Pillar of Autumn, explored Halo, escaped Halo, and now are back on the ship. Chief needs to overload the ship's engines to trigger an explosion and escape the ship. When they start the detonation sequence, Guilty Spark shows up to spoil the party.
I leave home for a few days and look what happens. This won't take long. There. That should give us enough time to make it to a lifeboat and put some distance between ourselves and Halo before the detonation.
I'm afraid that's out of the question, really.
Oh, hell.
Ridiculous! That you would imbue a warship's AI with such a wealth of knowledge? Weren't you worried it might be captured or destroyed?
He's in my data arrays, a local tab.
You can't imagine how exciting this is to have a record of all of our lost time. Human history, is it? Fascinating. Oh, how I will enjoy every moment of its categorization. To think that you would destroy this installation as well as this record. I am shocked. Almost too shocked for words.
He stopped the self-destruct sequence.
Why do you continue to fight us, Reclaimer? You cannot win. Give us the construct, and I will endeavor to make your death relatively painless and...
At least I still have control over the comm channels.
Where is he?
I'm detecting taps throughout the ship. Sentinels, most likely. As for the monitor, he's in engineering. He must be trying to take the core offline. Even if I could get the countdown restarted, I don't know what to do.
How much firepower would you need to crack one of the engine's shields?
Not much. A well-placed grenade, perhaps, but why? Okay, I'm coming with you. Chief, Sentinels!
I love the end of the sequence, where Chief is displaying the grenade. Again, while the Chief doesn't get a lot of characterization in this game, as he's mostly a vessel for the player, we get just enough characterization for Chief to be endearing. He is portrayed in this game with a pretty one-track mind, of defeating the Covenant and using weapons to do it. He gets more characterization in later games, but what we get in CE works well in the context of what else the game is trying to accomplish. With Guilty Spark's sabotage, Chief now needs to detonate the ship's reactors himself. He fights the Flood as well as Guilty Spark's monitors. Once the reactors are destroyed, the ship has gone critical. Chief now needs to escape. They arrange a distraction with Foehammer, the reliable pilot who has been picking us up and dropping us off throughout the game. This all culminates in a final Warthog run to the extraction point. Although driving is not the focal point of the gameplay, I think it was a good choice for the conclusion. The speed and momentum of the Warthog, paired with the countdown timer, relays the urgency of the story effectively. You're racing literally to the end. Chief arrives at the extraction point. The countdown timer stops. Mission accomplished. Or so we think. Foehammer arrives, but the Pelican goes down. Our reliable pilot, another casualty of the ring. Cortana finds another way out. Another ship is in inventory. Chief needs to board the Warthog again and race there. The countdown timer resumes exactly where it left off. This succeeds in spiking the player with adrenaline, as it catches them completely unaware, especially if there wasn't much time remaining on that clock when they reach the first extraction point. Chief races and tries to make a big jump. He misses and plummets below. There's another ramp though, so he lands and continues racing. Near the last leg, the way forward is obstructed. He has to leg it the rest of the way, fighting off elites as the timer inches towards zero. He makes it in the nick of time and flies off to escape the ring. This conclusion works very well. Aside from the speed and momentum, the climax plays with your expectations and throws twists in your way. The countdown timer stopping and then continuing, the failed jump, the obstruction at the end. This gives the player oscillations of triumph and despair, all while ratcheting up tension with the countdown timer. There aren't really any high-stakes driving like this earlier in the game, so this takes the player out of their comfort zone. All in all, the gameplay does a great job of communicating the game's narrative tension. Chief watches the Halo ring get destroyed. Although the mission is concluded, he knows the war is far from over. The camera pans from the ship to the galaxy at large. This essentially communicates how, whatever comes next will have greater stakes than just a Halo ring, with ramifications for the entire galaxy. And with that, Halo Combat Evolved is concluded. Halo Combat Evolved is a tightly told story, with great pacing and a twist which upends the player's expectations. This is paired with a likable cast, with Keyes, Johnson, Cortana, and Chief being easy people to root for. Furthermore, Halo Combat Evolved enhances the story with sound environmental storytelling and integrations of greater lore. However, I think the magic of Halo Combat Evolved is how these story elements are meshed perfectly with the dynamic nature of the gameplay and AI. They're crucial for creating interesting stories unique to each player. The believableness of the AI really sells both the human and enemy factions. I don't think we'd care as much about Chief succeeding in his mission if we didn't bond with the Marines and lose them firsthand. I don't think we'd see the Covenant as such an imposing enemy if their intelligence during gameplay wasn't so unique and tactical. I don't think the Flood would be seen as such a great threat if they didn't take the imposing Covenant and force even them to turn tail. Games are unique from other types of media in that a large part of their storytelling can be communicated through gameplay. Player interaction can enhance the world and get the player into the character's shoes by experiencing events firsthand. I think the great story, reinforced with these gameplay elements, is what makes the Halo universe portrayed in this first game resonate with so many fans. The elements combine in such a unique way, and there isn't a game series quite like it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing or checking out my Northfield series. Until next time.